I would say, in my opinion, the most important facet of whether or not Path of Exile feels fun to play is whether or not the endgame grind feels good. Now, I'm talking about the standard endgame gameplay loop of opening a map, running the map, and moving on to the next one. If that process feels good, the game typically feels good. Now, there are a ton of other underlying reasons as to why PoE can feel good or bad, but at the core, the mapping and atlas system is the thing that keeps the endgame running. This is how you get access to pretty much every single other in-game system that there is, including the different bosses, the Maven stuff. It all requires the atlas in some function. So when the atlas is at its best, I feel Path of Exile is at its best. And unfortunately, the atlas right now is getting a little boring. The main reason being is that, one, we haven't had an update to the atlas in quite some time, but something that we have learned over the last couple of leagues, ever since back in Metamorph League when we did get the new atlas introduced, making it so that there is this long build-up time to getting to the point where the game is fun is not necessarily the best way to go about it, and I'm talking about watch zones. Right now, it feels better to simply just buy all of your watch zones as soon as you possibly can, insert them into the atlas, and then start playing the game. This is what I personally did this league. At this point, I'm still gathering natural watch stones from a lot of the conquerors because I got maybe enough currency to be able to afford it and just bought them all out. I did this by just running into Heist, gathering a bunch of currency, buying as many of the watch stones as I needed to get up to Awakener 5 or 6, and going from there. It just isn't fun anymore to have to grind 32 watch stones every single league. It is a slog. To be able to get to the point where the game is actually quote-unquote fun should not take that long. However, we have gotten a little bit of knowledge from GGG and Christ Wilson himself about what is going to be happening in 3.16, which will be kind of a band-aid before we get the full new atlas reveal that we're getting in 3.17. However, this change actually might make 3.16 a very, very enjoyable league. So let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Now, if you're new or part of the large percentage of people who are still not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure that you do that so that these videos will show right up in your feed, and also make sure to like the video if you're enjoying all the content. Now, when I talk about the new Atlas changes that we're going to be getting, I am talking about the Atlas as you see it currently. Right now, we've got 8 regions, 164 maps, and honestly, it's a bit of a grind. It's something that originally didn't feel too terrible, but nowadays, after we've done this for so long, it's starting to make me realize that putting such a high level of grind before you can actually get to the fun part of the game, I guess you could say, is probably not the best way to go about things. Now, what do I mean by this? So the idea behind the Atlas is that every single one of these little pedestals that you've got here, when you fill them up fully, you get an Awakener level. And also what it does is it gives you higher tier versions of each of the maps. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that one of the most important things for actually sustaining high tier maps is getting all of your watch stones in. Most people don't realize this, but if you're having issues sustaining those very, very high tier maps, I'm talking tier 14s and higher, it could just be because you don't have your Atlas completed. There is this thing called map drop equity that happens, where if a lower tier map was meant to drop and it can't because it's not available on the Atlas, you get kind of a little tick of equity, which means that it's basically like progress towards dropping another map. So when you remove all tier 13 and lower maps, this map equity starts building up and building up and building up, and it gets you more high tier map drops, 14s, 15s, and 16s. So what ends up happening is that if you say were in this region and you just had this section of the Atlas not completely finished, say you took out, like you only had 2 watch stones for this region, and you've got some yellow maps in here, some tier 10s and some, some tier 11s, tier 12s, and that kind of thing. And you were farming, I don't know, Lex Proxima, right? Say you were farming Underground Rivers and Race Courses. Those are the 2 maps that you're wanting to run. What ends up happening is that if you are running these maps and a low tier map drop, and say that like a tier 11 map was meant to drop, well, because you have this tier 11 primordial pool and any other tier 11s that are available over here, those are going to drop. Now, if you actually had these watch stones in here and a tier 11 map was meant to drop, if you look, there are no tier 11s available on the Atlas whatsoever, nothing highlights, so you start to get that equity. Now, why this is important for the patch 3.16 and how the Atlas is going to change is that, as you can see it here, there is 164 maps to complete, and there are 8 regions. In 3.16, it has been confirmed confirmed that what they are trying to do is they're going to move towards 100 total maps, as well as 4 Atlas regions instead of 8. This is a massive change, because what it means is that you're only going to need 4 regions to be fully filled up to get to Awakener 8, and you're only going to need 4 regions to be fully filled up before you can get that map equity bonus started. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, Big Ducks, we're losing like 64 map completion, drop 2 tier higher. Yes, that is possible, but all that they have to do, and I hope that they do this, is that they just have to buff the base map drop by a little bit. They can math it out to where it'll be the same exact drop rate. If they make this a mapping expansion and they don't make the map drop rate good, I mean, it's going to be the same as anything else. It is what it is. This will be significantly easier to obtain. One other thing that they're going to be doing is they're going to be removing some maps from the actual map pool. We're only going to have 100 maps at any given time. And what's interesting about that is that it means that we're going to kind of get this shifting meta of which maps are actually worth running, and you're not always going to have the same ones. They said that they would curate it a little bit so we'd at least make sure that we have some maps of every single type. So that should be a massive, massive positive for us. Now, what this will mean is that there's not going to be, as far as I can tell, most likely no Awakener 1, 3, 5, and 7. It's just going to go 2, 4, 6, and 8. Or maybe they will just simply bring it down to 4, and then the point here in the middle will just make it Awakener 5. That would probably be better, I think. It's not going to be as cool anymore because, you know, you're not going to be, oh, well, I killed Cirrus on Awakener 8. It's like, I killed Cirrus on Awakener 4 now. Sounds less cool, but honestly, it's worth it if, you know, we get the updated Atlas where we don't have to grind for seemingly ever to be able to get all of these. Like, I have not actually even obtained all of my Watchstones. I've got most of them, but I still, to this point at the League, and I map a decent amount, I still haven't obtained all my Watchstones, and I don't know that I ever plan on going out of my way to do that, because the moment that you obtain all the Watchstones, it takes forever to get some of these maps completed. So I just simply went ahead, bought all of these extra chromium and other types of Watchstones from other people. They were relatively cheap, made the Atlas fill it a lot faster, and I am super excited about not having to farm 32 Watchstones. Now, one other thing that is interesting about this is that the Maven nodes here, the skill points for your Atlas trees, we're only going to have 4 regions. So what I'm wondering is, how are they going to divvy these up? There is a chance that potentially what they will do, and this is what I would like to see, just as a last hurrah for this Atlas version of it, I'd really like to see them take both of the, say we have like Delirium up here and we have Delirium here, put them all together, just make it happen. I want to see like the most ridiculously buffed Delirium maps and most ridiculously buffed Abyss stuff. I want to see them take all of the nodes and put them in the same sections. Now, I don't necessarily know that that's what's going to happen. It might not. It's what I'd really, really like to see, because it would be cool just to see this like Omega juiced version of the regions. And imagine being able to have all of the nodes, right? Like you could have all of the Harvest nodes or all of the Delirium nodes or all of the Alva nodes. I don't know that we'll get that. We'll have to see what actually happens with these, because I do have to say that these are very, very interesting nodes, right? Like all of these skill trees for the Atlas are very, very powerful, and they allow you to set up your, basically your in-game farming strategies. Like exotic goods is super powerful. You can get big stacks of just random currency, right? Like lots of chaos orbs and all kinds of cool stuff. So having it so that there are only 4, well, technically 5 with the middle region here. So having that there's only 5 regions now instead of 9 will make it significantly easier to get all of these points and do the things that we want to do. It's just going to make the Atlas way less grindy, way more impactful, and it will be probably pretty interesting to actually go through and finish up your Atlas. Because as you can see, I'm at about 129 out of 164. It'd be nice to actually feel compelled to finish my entire Atlas, and 100 is a much nicer number than 164 if we're being honest. And the Atlas is getting a little crowded. It looks a little bit ridiculous. And that is going to be it for the video. Now, I am pretty excited for this new endgame Atlas that we're potentially going to be getting in 3.116, just having it be a lot easier to push through into the endgame and get to the fun part of maps, and hopefully map drops are really good this league. And it will hopefully be a really good like last hurrah for this Atlas system before we move on to the one that we're getting in 3.17. So remember boys, like this video if you enjoy the content, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this, and stay safe out there in raid class. And I will see you guys in the next video.